The boy's heartbeat was fading. Monitors screamed. Nurses rushed. A billionaire father stood frozen, helpless, watching his only child slip away. And in that chaotic room full of the world's best doctors, none of them noticed the poor janitor standing quietly in the corner, until he suddenly stepped forward and did something that shocked everyone. That man was a single dad named Daniel Hayes. And this is the story of how a poor father saved a billionaire son, and how that moment changed both families forever. The hook, a life hanging by a thread. Clear. The defibrillator paddles jolted 13-year-old Oliver Bennett's small body. His father, Richard Bennett, owner of Bennett Tech and one of the most powerful men in the country, felt his world collapsing. Oliver had been battling a rare immune disorder. His condition had crashed so fast that even the specialists flown from abroad stood speechless, shaking their heads. "We're losing him," one doctor whispered. Richard's legs gave out. He sank to the floor, muttering, "Please, not my boy, anything but this." In the corner, Daniel, the night janitor, paused mid-mopping. His eyes filled with recognition. He'd lived this moment once before with his own son. He knew the sound of a failing heartbeat better than anyone. But Daniel's son had survived. Not because of money or miracles. But because of something Daniel learned the hard way. Something no book taught. Something no doctor believed in. And now, watching Oliver fade, something inside Daniel refused to stay silent. The poor single dad with a secret. Daniel was invisible to most people. A quiet, worn-out man doing night shifts in a children's hospital so he could pay for his own son Luke's therapy bills. Years ago, Luke had stopped breathing during a severe allergic reaction. Doctors gave up. They said the boy wouldn't make it. But Daniel refused to accept that. He remembered holding Luke, talking to him gently, keeping him responsive, keeping him fighting until a last-minute experimental treatment arrived that saved his life. That night, doctors called it luck. Daniel called it hope. And he recognized that same hopeless moment now in Oliver's room. Richard Bennett was begging the doctors to try something else, anything else. But they had nothing left. "There is one more thing we haven't tried," Daniel said quietly, stepping forward. Everyone turned. The doctors frowned. A billionaire stared at him as if he were a ghost. A janitor? Interrupting a critical medical emergency. But something in Daniel's trembling voice stopped Richard from yelling. What can you do?" Richard asked, more out of desperation than belief. Daniel swallowed hard. "I've lived the moment you're living right now. My son survived because I didn't let him slip away. I need you to trust me for 5 minutes." "Trust you?" one doctor scoffed. "You're a janitor." But Richard raised a hand. "Let him speak." The shocking moment. Without waiting for permission, Daniel walked to Oliver's bedside. He took the boy's hand. Warm, but fading. Daniel leaned close and began speaking calmly, steadily, as if Oliver could hear every word. "Hey, Oliver, stay with us, kid. I know your body is tired, but fight a little longer. Your dad's here. He needs you. Don't go. Not yet." The room went silent. Daniel was grounding the boy, stimulating his consciousness, something doctors rarely attempted at this stage. One nurse whispered, "He's helping regulate the boy's breathing rhythm." Another nurse added, "It might stabilize his heart for just long enough." The monitors trembled. Daniel kept talking. "Your life isn't ending today. Hold on, Oliver. Just hold on." And suddenly, beep, beep, beep. Oliver's heart rhythm stabilized. The doctors snapped into motion. "Prepare the serum. Now." The rare experimental treatment that had a tiny chance of saving Oliver had just arrived minutes earlier, but they didn't think he'd survive long enough to receive it. Daniel had bought them those minutes. Bought Oliver a chance. Bought a billionaire's son his life. A stunning turning point. Hours later, after the worst had passed, Richard found Daniel sitting alone in the hallway, head in his hands. Exhausted. Shaking. Richard approached slowly. "Daniel, my son is alive because of you." Daniel looked down. "I didn't do much. Just kept him here long enough. You did what my money couldn't. What doctors couldn't. You gave my boy time. Richard took a seat beside him. And I need to know how I can repay you. Daniel shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Richard didn't accept that. Not when he had seen a father's purest love save his child. The challenges Daniel had been hiding. Over cups of vending machine coffee, Richard learned the truth. Daniel was raising his son alone. Luke needed continuous therapy for his condition. Daniel worked 3 jobs to afford it. He barely saw daylight. Barely ate properly. Barely slept. I just want Luke to grow up healthy, Daniel said, voice cracking. That's all that matters. Richard felt his chest tighten. He had spent years drowning in work, forgetting what mattered most, until nearly losing Oliver reminded him. He saw in Daniel the father he wished he had been. And at that moment, Richard made a silent promise. What the billionaire did next. 2 weeks later, Oliver walked out of the hospital, smiling, healthy, alive. Daniel was sweeping the lobby floor when Richard and Oliver approached him. Oliver ran straight into his arms. Thank you for saving my life, he whispered. Daniel wiped tears from his face. Richard cleared his throat and handed him an envelope. Inside was a fully funded college scholarship for Luke. A stable management job for Daniel at Benetech with a salary higher than anything he had ever dreamed. Medical coverage for Luke. And a note. No father should fight alone. Daniel broke down crying. Sir. I don't know what to say. Richard put a hand on his shoulder. You saved my son. Now let me help yours. Final message, a life-changing connection. Luke and Oliver became inseparable friends. Daniel finally had time to be a father again instead of a man drowning in bills. Richard found purpose again, not in business, but in people. 2 fathers from different worlds. A billionaire and a janitor. Bound by the love they had for their children. And by one unforgettable moment when a poor single dad stepped forward while everyone else stepped back. Sometimes heroes don't wear white coats. Sometimes they wear worn-out boots, carry a mop, and have hearts stronger than any machine. And sometimes, the poorest man in the room is the one with the richest spirit. If you want, I can also write.